This video is sponsored by... you already know. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Before we start this video, I just want to say...
Hey Drake, can you do me a favor? Can you go by the gas station and pick me up some more nachos?
You know those things will kill you, right?
I'm a kobold. I'm gonna die young anyway. Just let me enjoy something, God!
Spare some change for an orc down on his luck. Gallic? Gallic, is that you? What? Oh, Drake! I didn't want you to see me like this. Hey, you were my favorite starter in Raid Shadow Legends. What happened to you, man? Let me start at the very beginning. When the orcs were created by the Dark Lord Cyroth, we fought a brutal war with the Banner Lords, High Elves, and Sacred Order, where they stole our land and forced us to become roaming nomadic tribes. In my tribe, I emerged as one of the most formidable warriors ever seen. And it wasn't like I had no competition or nothing. I mean, look at all these champions! Look, Gallic, as much as I love Raid's customization options and leveling up champions, I didn't ask for your life story. You were supposed to tell me how the hell you ended up looking as pathetic as you do now. I'm getting there! I was in my prime, but then the worst happened. I got hooked on loot. It started off innocent enough, a legendary shield here, an epic sword there, but then I really got on that grind, and before I knew it, I was addicted to Raid Shadow Legends and its incredibly rewarding loot system. I lost the house, my girlfriend, everything. That's it? You got addicted to getting loot in a mobile game? What do you say, Drake? I hear you're doing YouTube now. Care to give your favorite Raid Shadow Legend starter a helping hand? Okay, fine. Look, you're better than this. You are a Shadow Legend. You can do anything you put your mind to. Raid has tons of things going on this month. Special events, new champions, and the Guardian Ring. A brand new way to use your champions. Plus, in December, Raid is releasing one of its biggest and most anticipated features ever. I mean, look at this. Doesn't that look exciting? I can't do it, Drake. It's not who I am anymore. Yes, you can, Gallic, because I'm gonna help you. Just click the link in the description or scan my QR code, and you'll get 200k silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and an ancient shard to help you get back on your feet. Plus, I'll give you a new girlfriend to replace your old one. Chinaru is an epic champion who's as great in the Doom Tower as she is at being the best goth waifu you could ask for. All you gotta do is click the link in the description or scan my QR code, and all of it will be waiting for you right in your inbox. You know what, Drake? You're right. I've been dealt a bad hand, but if orcs are good at anything, it's making a comeback. I'm gonna live forever! Okay, all of my loot cushioned the impact. Now that I can afford to feed myself this month, let's go ahead and move on to what you all came here for. It's common practice for DMs to borrow materials from their favorite books, video games, and movies. If you're a DM and claim to have never, ever taken inspiration from other media, well, congratulations on being a liar. In all seriousness, though, this really isn't an issue. It's a widely accepted practice in the world of D&D. But just like with all good things, you can take it way too far. Today's story stars a DM who thinks that he can run D&D's most successful module and pass it off as his own homebrew. Also, for some reason, League of Legends characters are included. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG-Horror-Stories. Enjoy. This week's story comes from user Jillabini and is titled DM Runs Curse of Strahd, and claims it to be his own homebrew, and forces players into playing League of Legends characters. This one will be a bumpy ride, so buckle up. Also, English is not my first language, so sorry for any mistakes. As any other good RPG horror story, this one starts at LFG. Few months ago, I've stumbled upon small advertisements on our local LFG about a roleplay heavy game, and decided that I have enough spare time to give it a go. I've been invited to a Discord server with only one other dude. The server was too big for a regular game, and soon I figured out that a few games were running there by a few DMs. Our DM invited us to a voice chat and started explaining his homebrew world, and announced that the game will be set in Curse of Strahd. It wasn't mentioned in the advertisements, and the DM started explaining that the game will be in fact homebrew, in his homebrew world. He just needed a name for a big vampire villain, and didn't want to use Dracula. One guy left immediately as he didn't sign up to do a module, and I should have followed him. But I really wanted to play some of my characters in a roleplay heavy group, so I stayed. Stupid, stupid me. The DM then went on a long rant about how the dude was wrong, and how his character idea was stupid anyway. He wanted to play a Forge Cleric. What kind of concept is that, am I right? Well, this was the biggest red flag, and at this point I realized that this was gonna be some bullish game. And even if I won't have a good game, I will be able to have a good laugh. So I kinda knew where we were going, but I couldn't know how huge the boom would be. Then the DM asked me for my concepts. I offered him 4 or 5, and he said that they all didn't fit in his world. I exclusively play small races, but he doesn't have any in his world. No kobolds, no goblins, no gnomes, no halflings. He said, the only reason anyone would ever play a halfling is if they were min-maxing. Okay. I have 3 other concepts who aren't small races, but still he said they wouldn't work. No dragonborns, no monks, no artificers. Bloodhunter is okay, but I won't let you play it because it's underpowered. I mean, who even plays Phaelux? At some point, he sent me some character references and asks, wouldn't it be cool if you were a Nordic tiefling ranger? Okay, so we have my character, Tyra. The DM suggests a few character traits and reasons why she isn't up north right now. We establish her connections, and the DM tells me that she should have some kind of blinking ability, and that it's important to the plot somehow. I agree, and I pick the Horizon Walker subclass. I never have and probably never will understand DMs who do this. The kind of DMs who just pile on mountains of restrictions on character creation. One of the biggest draws to D&D is that you can make whatever character you want to make. Being told no right out of the starting gate without any substantial reasoning is kind of a recipe for disappointment. Obviously, there are some exceptions. For example, the most commonly banned race is the Aarakocra, because of the teeny tiny little detail that they can fly at level 1, which can be incredibly damaging to both the story and to game balance. But allow me to share with you a controversial opinion. I don't believe in the outright banning of any official D&D races, classes, or abilities. Instead, I advocate for modification. Whenever a player at my table wants to play an Aarakocra, I sit them down and we figure out a way to modify their flight ability, so it can be accessible to them at a higher level instead of right out of the starting gate. My personal favorite is the idea that the PC is a fledgling, and just like real birds, they need to learn how to fly by themselves. This allows the player to still play the character that they have in their head, while also giving them some built-in character progression and goals. So next time you get the urge to outright ban a class or a race, think about how you can work with your players to modify it instead. Because what's the harm in encouraging some roleplay in your role-playing game? So we start our session 1. Of course, there was no session 0. The cast. DM. He is just that. Tyra. My girl. Paladin. Owner of the server and DM of the other game, where our DM and Bladelock are playing. Bladelock. Very special elven woman and sister of Paladin. Phalok. A young and curious girl. Artificer. Some old friend of DM's. Well, he told me that he doesn't want any artificers, but there was one. Maybe she just had a better character concept. From the start, my Tyra is assigned as a bodyguard to Artificer. I'm okay-ish with that. We meet as a party somewhere 3 hours into the game, and it's all going pretty well actually. The players are great, DM is a good storyteller, and he puts a lot of effort into his visuals and music. A lot of fun so far. I've made Tyra a little bit brutish, but I put a lot of nature-related metaphors into her character. Our interactions with Artificer are fun as well. We all are going to Artificer's old mansion. When we finally find it, we realize that it's actually the Death House from Curse of Strahd, the exact same module that the DM said he was not running. So yeah, Artificer is the last of her family. All the others were slain by Strahd, and this is her mansion. We enter and explore all the floors, but there were 0 encounters. There's some bullshit in the basement, which we easily kill. DM tells us that we can't stop the session until we finish. The session lasted almost 7 hours. At the end of the day, he says, "You all did a bad job." Our party is unbalanced. We have only one frontliner who gets obliterated in 2 rounds. I mean, somehow only my character did okay, or so he says. Only one of us gets downed in combat, but he wants everything to be very realistic. So if you don't patch yourself up immediately after being hit, you die. Role-playing was pretty fun though, so I'm still on board. We all stay to talk after the session, and the DM says, "I want to play D&D with friends, so we all must become friends. Every evening we sit in the chat. Come sit with us." I have some problems with coming to places that I wasn't personally invited to. So I tell him that I can come if they announce the gathering in some way beforehand. We all leave. I text DM after the game, asking if I can change my subclass to better fit a melee role better. He said he was okay with that, but he mentions that I still needed the blinking for plot reasons. And he said he would just make me a feat that I must take. Okay, I guess. Session 2 comes. We all sit in the Death House, drinking tea and making plans on how to renovate this place to live here. The DM says that we can't stay here. We need to live in Barovia. So we go. We arrive there, meet Ismark, and he tells us all about the place, and about Irina. Reminder, we are totally not playing a module. He changed things a bit, to be fair. Irina and Ismark are lovers now. We, totally not according to the module, escort Irina to Valakai. I have a great time interacting in character, but the paladin is mostly silent. Phalok got to meet her Patreon, and it was a League of Legends character. DM praises League of Legends for its characters being written good every minute of his life. We end the session, and the DM says to the Phalok player in a disappointed tone, "I expected your character to act otherwise." Weird to hear such a thing from a DM. Oh well. The DM then starts ranting that nobody came to voice chat to be friends. And then we all left. I expected your character to act otherwise. Well, I'm sure your party expected to not be running a plagiarized module while being forced to watch you roleplay as League of Legends characters, but here we are. Free piece of advice for anyone who's new to DMing. Expecting things to happen is just kind of setting yourself up for failure. Just because you'd like something to unfold a certain way doesn't mean that it will. It's like getting upset when you fill your gas tank with Kool-Aid, and instead of having your exhaust smell like tropical fruit punch, you end up totaling your engine. In D&D, it normally goes one of two ways. You either find yourself disappointed when the story doesn't pan out the way you wanted it to, or you become tempted to force players into performing actions that they may not want to do. The main difference between traditional storytelling and storytelling in RPGs is that no one knows what's gonna happen when you're playing an RPG. Stumbling through shenanigans with your players and having no idea how the story ends is one of the most rewarding parts of DMing. If I just wanted to play in a game where I do the same thing over and over while being talked down to by a bunch of toxic neckbeards, well, I would just go play League of Legends. Artificer PMs me to discuss our character's relationship, and we talk a little bit about our characters. She says, "Oh, you have the Nordic Ranger with blinking powers. I played that character in DM's previous games. She has a really nice story." What the fuck? She says that she has played with this DM before, and when she did, she played a Nordic rogue with some blinking powers, and it was a lot of fun. I find it disturbing that the DM just decided to give me someone else's story, despite me being proud with my own backstory, but I decide not to call him out. Session 3, we fight some random centaurs on the way to Valakai. DM says that we are doing bad. None of us were downed. So he made the last centaur run away. When we reach Valakai, there's an NPC named Isaac, who is definitely not from the module, who was beginning to give us a bad time, and the DM was pushing us to fight him. Bladelock at this point was our party face, so she did almost all of the interactions with NPCs. All of them pressure her not to kill Isaac, but to remove him somehow. We get there and start fighting guards in a small hall. But we all roll badly and can't kill a single guard in 3 rounds. So some rebels arrive and we go on the flight of small stairs to floor 2. Isaac is standing in front of us. Here, everything is going to shit, so I ask the DM if I can transfer my hunter's mark onto Isaac. He says no. I was running a whole minute on 40 feet of stairs. I don't object, but I don't like to argue with the DM in the middle of the game. So we start fighting. Me and Paladin were frontlining. I cast Zephyr Strike in order to leave Isaac's melee range, as I don't have a lot of HP left, so I can throw axes from afar. I then asked the DM if I could pick up one of the axes near Isaac as an item interaction. He says sure. I come in melee range and leave. He says, "He will now make an opportunity attack." I have Zephyr Strike on me still. I don't provoke opportunity. "He has this special ability, so now you do." Okay, can I read the ability? "No, I didn't write it down." Okay, so he hits me and I'm unconscious. Bladelock, who was told like 40 times by some NPC that we need to take Isaac alive, asks if she can throw a knife to his knee, to make her ranged attack not lethal. He doesn't allow it, so she's forced to come closer and hit him in melee. So of course, she misses due to her shitty bonus. Isaac crits on her brother, leaving him with only one eye. Of course we had injuries in our roleplay heavy game. We eventually win the fight, but everyone is frustrated. Tyra insists on cutting off Isaac's arm, with necessary medical preparation. DM says okay, but Artificer and Bladelock players start arguing that it's not realistic, and that if he can die to a dagger to the knee, he can certainly die to having his arm cut off. In response, the DM rage quits. That could have been a good ending to this story, but he did come back to apologize within half an hour. He gathers all of us together and announces that 2 characters will die next session. I say, lol, it's gonna be me and Paladin, of course. We're the only melee fighters. The DM says, no, it won't be Tyra. We all sit silently, as if it's okay to plan the death of a character in a roleplay heavy game in session 4. I don't think so. Artificer calls DM in a private voice call to ask him to not kill her character because she likes her, and she is going through some stuff IRL and doesn't want any more stress, only to figure out that he plans to kill the Artificer and Bladelock. We don't talk about it much, and session 4 is coming. Meanwhile, there are some things going on in the server which spice things up a bit. So there are 3 games currently being run. 1 run by Paladin, 1 by DM, and Bladelock is gathering new players to start her own. She invited a few last week. One of them was a miner who was enthusiastic about drawing her cute druid. DM plays in all 3 games. So the day of the game comes, and I got messaged by DM half an hour before the start to come into voice chat. Bladelock left the server, he says. She didn't give any reasoning to anyone. She left their gaming group in Messenger and blocked the DM. She also left all of her newfound players on the server. We sit for a little bit, till Artificer and Phaelok enter voice chat, and we start discussing what could have happened. Paladin was supposed to be absent that session. I get angry at first, because I don't like when people just ghost. But then one of her players says she got a text, which explains that Bladelock found this server toxic, and couldn't stand it anymore. We confront the DM, as last evening they were playing League of Legends together in voice, and he was the only one who could have known anything. He then says, oh, she left because you didn't want to be friends, and you never sat in voice chat with us. We shrug as it's hard to believe, but he claims that this was his working theory. We discuss a few more possible reasons as the other new player, we'll call him Rogue, enters the voice and blames DM for bullying Bladelock into leaving. When Bladelock invited new players, DM felt obligated to call them into the voice chat and explain to them how we play here. Rogue wanted to play a rogue, so DM called him to make sure that he won't steal from the party and understands that playing a halfling rogue is dumb. He made a literal child cry by criticizing their character. And every time he got in voice chat with Bladelock, he pressured her to play her character how he saw fit. After all, he is the one who assigned her that character. We are all sitting and listening to Rogue's story. DM said that everything Rogue was saying is bullshit, and asked sarcastically, did I assign characters to anyone else? Yeah, to me, I speak up. And me, says Phaelok. And me, actually, says Artificer. We all sit there silently. Both Artificer and Phaelok entered this game after me. He told me no to both of these classes, and then he forced someone else to play them. DM is trying to stabilize the situation. He kicks Rogue from the voice chat and starts persuading us that we picked our characters by ourselves. But all 3 of us are standing our ground. At this point, we're trying to talk to DM and explain to him that it was his actions that led to Bladelock leaving the server, and not wanting anything to do with TTRPGs anymore. He says, yeah, that might be it, but she also might have left because we didn't sit in voice chat like friends. Then Paladin showed up. He says that he bans DM from his server and reads us a message from Bladelock, which sounds a lot like she was abused by DM. A lot. We all leave, but the story doesn't end here. Me, Artificer, and Phalok have other common servers, in which we gather to discuss what just happened. And Artificer tells us about their previous game, which also broke up because of DM's bullshit. He apparently lied to him about his age, as 2 years ago he was 20. And a few days prior to our last session, he had had his 20th birthday. He once even lied about his father dying to stop the session. She didn't know it was all lies, but she figured out later and she hoped that he had gotten better. When we were generating Tyra, he told me about his roleplay group and showed me a few commissions of his character. I googled them and obviously it wasn't his character or commissions. I don't know what else he lied about, but when he created another server and invited us, only Artificer joined to support her friend, only to later be blamed for a second group breaking up because of her, as per DM's usual. I contacted Paladin and he got his character assigned as well. He wanted to play Ranger, but DM didn't allow him, because he was forcing me into playing a Ranger. All the times he was silent at the game, he just didn't want to play his character. So yeah, if you haven't figured it out by now, all of our characters were just League of Legends characters. Everything from my blinking Nordic bullshit to Phalok being Nico all along. I struggle to name the others as I don't play League of Legends. I just hope Bladelock will forgive us all and consider trying TTRPGs sometime again. TLDR. DM forces everyone in the game to play characters that someone else wanted to play. Bullies everyone when his expectations weren't met until the group explodes. We all play in a totally original homebrew, which definitely wasn't Curse of Strahd. End of story. Well, OP, that makes two of us, because I don't play League of Legends either. But I hear that it has a lovely fandom that doesn't struggle with being toxic at all. It goes without saying, but assigning characters to your players and then forcing them to act out story beats isn't playing a role-playing game. You're just putting on a low-budget play of your DM fanfiction. At that point, you might as well just ditch the dice and start handing out scripts and costumes. If you're gonna be a railroading dickhead, it's best to go all in. Now before we go, let's take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art is done by viewer Helpless. And can I just say that I look fucking jacked? Like, damn dude, I've been hitting them biceps and delts like a beast. Hey girl, you wanna see how I got shoulders like these? Cringe-based steroids. Yeah, sure, they got a few side effects, and my doctor says I probably won't survive the next 10 years. But can you argue with results like these? I mean, does your man got wings like mine? Ha 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 ha. Thank you again, Helpless, for submitting your art. If you want to see your artwork featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed your time here, be sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.